word to wise. Grass only greener when it's fertilized. Gave them truth in these songs, they prefer to lies. Destiny beautiful, adrift in her purple lies. You can't see me, you Stevie. Wondering how I reach more evolutions than Evie and make it look easy.
What is up, Earth's mightiest subscribers? It's your boy Ernie, the Blerd Without Fear. Welcome back to the channel. Alright, so today's video we're going to be talking about
Captain Planet, he's our hero, gonna take pollution down to zero.
number 2. And not only is he taking pollution down to zero, we're actually going to be spending a little bit more time looking into the Planeteers, as well as I kind of want to take a peek at the history. There's a brief history that's introduced in Captain Planet. David is expanding on the lore of the Captain Planet. In some ways, the animated series kind of did, but also in some ways it kind of doesn't. It's not really spending a whole heap of a lot of time with this stuff, but it's doing just enough that it's kind of putting some respect on the different cultures that has existed throughout history, all within the scope of Captain Planet. Also, I do want to spend a little bit of time talking about the upcoming Netflix adaptation of Captain Planet, and I'm not directly, but kind of addressing some criticisms that people have had who clearly don't know fuck all about Captain Planet. So basically, off top, this issue, while yes, we got introduced to the Planeteers in the first issue, we are actually getting a little bit more time with each one of them, kind of seeing some of those relationships from the original animated series play over into what's happening right here in this new adaptation at Dynamite Entertainment. And one of the things I thought was really cool about this is that a lot of the character interactions and relationships and, you know, I guess some of the camaraderies that were developed over the course of the series, they are alive and well, and in some ways kind of subverted, but at the same time perpetuated in this new rebooted Captain Planet. Case in point, Kwame and Guy. Guy already kind of seems a little bit smitten with the idea of Kwame, maybe mostly just because she's a really big soccer head, but like she also, you know, kind of seems to be, you know, smelling what The Rock, in this particular case, Kwame, is cooking. Also at the same time, Kwame kind of seems to be, you know, a little playful right back with her, and just like in the animated series, how Wheeler had a thing for Linka, all of that is, you know, here in this as well, although Linka is definitely not having any of Wheeler's shenanigans in this issue. But what I really enjoyed about this is that we get to see exactly how much the Planeteers can do, how much they can get away with those elemental rings in this issue. And something I thought was really cool, and I even saw, I can't even take credit for this because I saw someone else talk about it online, but you know, they were talking about how the elemental rings the Planeteers use, it's kind of fun to see them used in a more recent, you know, adaptation, because we've had things like Avatar: The Last Airbender and Korra the, you know, Last Airbender, so on and so forth. We even have a new Avatar series that'll be coming up here before too long. And one thing I love about that is that, you know, we have seen how people have found new and crazy ways to showcase how elements can be used offensively. And we see here where David's taking some of that and then kind of turning it back around and bringing it all back to where it belongs, because Captain Planet and the Planeteers were, I won't say the original elemental benders, but I mean, they were probably some of the most famous ones before Avatar ever hit the scene. And we get to see at a point where Kwame is able to use someone's dietary choices against them. A guy who, after, you know, and I want to point this out too, because this is a really interesting moment, because Kwame and Guy get arrested by what is effectively ice. This is crazy. This is happening in this day and age. I mean, it's not ice, but I mean, it's basically them being black bagged and taken, snatched off the streets. No differently than people are getting snatched off the streets IRL. And in this particular instance, you know, well, yes, it's not because of an immigration issue or anything like that, but the energy is no less the same. These people are not answering their questions, not giving them charges, and they are already detained and in the back of an unmarked vehicle being taken to an unknown location, no charges being given. This is what happens to a whole black man and a whole Asian woman right there in the streets in front of everyone. It's not even like something's being hidden. But one thing I dug about this is that in this instance, one of the not ice agents. They are eating a salad. And here's the thing. These people don't understand how the elemental rings work. These guys who have captured them. What does Kwame do? He uses the power of Earth, because the power of Earth gives him dominion over not just rocks and trees, but also vegetation. And what does Kwame do? He literally takes the salad this man is eating and basically turns it into a way for them to bust out of the back of that vehicle. And also in this particular instance, Guy is able to wield the water that is literally piping through the sewers of New York to knock the vehicle over and even further secure their freedom. And then of course, when you get over to like characters like Linka and Wheeler, they get into it because Linka, who is going to a protest that is against the villain of this first arc, Lucian Plunder, who technically in the series, he was called Luton Plunder. But in this particular instance, he's not officially Luton Plunder. Technically he is, but he goes by the name Lucian. Luton is what people call him, kind of like how we call Donald Trump Don the Con, or like Apartheid Clyde for Elon Musk. It's a nickname that people have given him because of how terrible a person he is, and I appreciate that it's very obvious who Luton Plunder is in this particular instance. He is an allegory for Elon Musk. He can also technically be an allegory for Donald Trump as well. I mean, you can honestly kind of call him a pastiche of both characters, but I really appreciate how in this, because of all the stuff that Luton Plunder is doing, it has caused this uproar, and people are protesting it. And Linka, well, yes, she comes from money, and yes, she's being criticized by her butler, father's butler, really, who is basically kind of speaking through the voice of her father for her reckless actions and how basically she's naive and she lives a life of privilege and she's trying to make it seem like she's a part of the rabble. And Linka, well, yes, she comes from money. She is the type of person who she's like, no, yeah, I am a bog standard white woman who hails from money, but she is also going to use her white privilege to the benefit of not herself, but of other people, and she throws herself into the fray. But the whole issue here is that Wheeler, because all the Planeteers are converging on each other, they're being drawn together by the elemental power that they wield. Wheeler ends up encountering Linka because his ring, he doesn't know how to control it. So he accidentally starts a fire in the middle of the protest, and Linka pulls up and is ready to throw hands. And I love how the two characters are playing off of each other. Wheeler wielding the power of fire against Linka, which to be fair is kind of a bad matchup because wind, fire, it can kind of go either way, but honestly, Linka is able to use the power of wind to basically nullify pretty much everything Wheeler does, and they're throwing tornadoes and firestorms at each other, and eventually end up meeting with Kwame and Guy. And they kind of do a thing I actually don't like happening in comics, like when characters don't take a few minutes to talk and figure each other out. But in this instance, it's like, wait a minute, Linka and Wheeler don't like each other, but Kwame and Guy pull up, and now they're like, you know what, let's put our shit on pause, let's mess up these two people. If there's any one thing about the comic I actually don't like in this instance, is that particular aspect. It's almost like too convenient for them to be like, yeah, you know what, you almost burned up a bunch of people, but yeah, let me go over here. Let's get these other two people we don't even know anything about. But to be fair, nothing really comes of it. They don't even fight for, I think, even a whole page, really, before Mati shows up with the power of heart. As I said when we talked about this previously, Mati is that dude. I love Mati in this new rebooted Captain Planet, shenanigans. He is fantastic. Honestly, I think I said this last time, but I'm gonna stick to my guns yet again. He is the most improved of all of the Planeteers. I mean, for the most part, a lot of them are still the same, but I really appreciate that Mati has been given this glow up. Like, cause he's serious. He is serious as a heart attack, and he lets you know off top, man, hey, I will catch a body out here. And we see that he's being led by some mysterious force, which is not really all that mysterious because I think it's pretty obvious. It's Captain Planet off top. But Mati is able to use his powers to get into the minds of everybody, get them to understand that they are all on the same page. And it's kind of what brings us full circle on what the Planeteers realize they're able to do. And I love how in this particular instance, I was talking about the history of Captain Planet and the elemental rings and Gaia being the high priestess. At the very very beginning of this issue, we get what is effectively a very brief history of the elemental rings and the high priestess who came before, who, as far as we can tell, for the most part, have majority been women. There's one dude who's, at the very beginning, and they kind of show us Pompeii back in 79 AD, basically letting us know that Captain Planet was there at that historical moment, and that he was also around in the South China Sea back in the 1300s, and he was also in Kenya back in 1915 AD, basically showcasing one of the high priestesses taking on colonizers. I was totally here for it, 100% in for a penny, in for a pound. But the thing we saw in the previous issue is that Gaia had all 5 rings, as she originally did in the animated series. But one thing that's kind of focused on a little bit more is the fact that there are never 5 Planeteers. There are no Planeteers. There's just one priestess, and I love how we get that kind of a brief history overview to kind of be like, oh, wait a minute, we've normally been wielding these, solo dolo, but now we got one person that was wielding it. Now there's 5 people wielding it, and that's kind of adding to the drama of it all, and I really appreciated that. In the original animated series, Gaia kind of almost talks about the elemental rings, because all this is done very, quickly in the original series, but, she kind of talks about it as though, it's almost normal for there to be 5 Planeteers, on some level. Maybe until you get a little later in the series, but, for the most part, it's almost just kind of talked about as though, yeah, this is the thing. But here, it's treated as though, no, it's usually just one person. And now, for the first time ever, there are 5 people. And yes, they do say the thing. They do not hide or run from the thing. And I actually like how in this particular instance it's treated a little bit differently. And I also appreciate that, yeah, we're in issue 2, but Captain Planet has yet to be fully summoned until this issue. I like that it's taking that slow burn approach to try and tell a story, to not try and treat it as a story of the week type of thing. It's trying to actually tell a long form story. And yes, I've seen ahead. I know some people are probably asking, where's Captain Pollution? Where's Captain Pollution? Well, you're gonna get Captain Pollution, but you gotta wait a little bit. It's gonna be a few more issues down the road. But yeah, right now they're trying to focus on getting the Planeteers where they need to be to fight, loot, and plunder first. But yes, we do get to see Captain Planet summoned in this issue. And I like how, yeah, they do the whole earth, fire, wind, water, heart. Yeah, they don't do the go planet part, but they do kind of do a variance of the by your powers combined, I am Captain Planet. They kind of find a way to do it in such a way that I think actually makes even more sense. And this is why I'm so glad that David was on this book, because yeah, I think when I talked about this before, David already did Space Ghost. And yeah, I know a lot of people when that book was coming out, kind of similar to the discourse that happened with this series when it was initially announced. I had so many people be like, man, why didn't they make him look like Don Cheadle? Why didn't they make him more like Don Cheadle? It's like nobody would have taken that book seriously. No, even y'all would not have taken that book seriously. I'm telling y'all that right now because I have seen this type of shit happen before. Y'all say y'all want the thing, but y'all don't really want the thing, because it's not, that Don Cheadle shit works in a small dose. Could it work in a long form capacity? It probably could, maybe, but really wouldn't be Captain Planet. It would be a parody of Captain Planet. And while that's fine, this is not meant to be a parody. This is meant to be Captain Planet taken very seriously. And the same thing happened with Space Ghost. I remember with Space Ghost, people were like, oh man, why is it not like Space Ghost Coast to Coast? And it's because once again, same answer. It would be a parody of Space Ghost, not actual Space Ghost. And I would argue Space Ghost is one of the best series that have come out in the last year. And that's saying a lot. I'm talking not just for Dynamite, I'm saying period. Space Ghost is one of the best books on shelves right now. Unironically. And that is because David Pepose knew what the assignment was. He understood the assignment and he went and took care of business. And he's doing the same thing here. Once again, we get this tease that we're gonna be seeing Duke Nukem next. We got Loot and Plunder. We'll be seeing Duke Nukem coming up for issue 3. And I'm excited for that. And also, I'll just say too, just in closing, if you're the least bit a fan of Captain Planet, I think there's a lot to like here. I think if you're one of those people who does not like the idea of Captain Planet, or you think, oh man, they wokeified Captain Planet. Look, I'm gonna keep it a buck with you. Captain Planet was already woke. It was a team. It was a team that already had more black and brown and other persuasions of people on it than there were white people. There were 2 white people on the team, Wheeler and Linka. That's it. My T is not white. Gee is not white. Kwame, the leader of the team, is not white. Gaia, not white. And even though Captain Planet kind of looked like, if you took the blue skin away, he'd probably just be a bog standard white dude. He's blue. Your one other potential white character is blue. I can't help you with that. And also the villains. You gotta look at the villains. Oh, the villains are white. 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 And then like corporate billionaires. Corporate billionaires, robber barons, and I'm actually, I want to look this up because I actually don't remember. Are there any black villains here? Oh, let's do this real quick. No. Let's be real. No one's gonna make Captain Planet woke, okay? It already is woke. It was woke before woke is what it is you consider today. And all the people who are saying that it's gonna be woke or that they think it's gonna be trash because it's woke or whatever, or that it's gonna be ruined because it's woke, these are people who did not like Captain Planet to begin with. Let's just go and get that out of the way. You either A, didn't like Captain Planet, B, didn't watch Captain Planet, or C, both. And I think people really need to understand using woke as an insult sounds so fucking dumb. Because what is the opposite of woke? Say it with me now. Sleep. And if you are asleep, guess what can happen to you? You can get got. But if you woke, you ain't gonna get got. Thank you all. I hope you all have a good, wonderful rest of your day. Hope you go on out into the world and do amazing things. And please remember, it's always better to step on a fascist's boots than it is to lick them. And Hulk Hogan,
We coming for you, nigga.